Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named on this our day in the Pro Revenge subreddit. The post is titled, "I played the long game. I am by no means an expert or pro at revenge, but I am a patient person. I disclosed this to a friend and they directed me here. Throwaway for obvious reasons, it's a long read, but the setup and backstory are important. 7 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to buy my own place. I had saved for 10 years, worked my butt off, and I was so happy to be able to have a place to call my own. Now, being a single person on the mortgage meant I had to make compromises. One such compromise was buying a property on a shared block. Where I'm from, this usually means it's on a strata title. For some, that's a bonus as it means there's a communal fund for repairs. Typically, insurance is cheaper as it's collective and other things like maintenance are being taken care of. Strata titles also come with a lot of bylaws and restrictions on what you can and can't do. I'm a pretty private and introverted person, so having to deal with people and have limits on how I live was a no-no. I took my time, found the perfect property, shared block but freehold title. The only thing was that I needed to pay public liability insurance for the shared walkway on the property. The real estate agent is local to my area. There's also about 3 degrees of separation between us. He has friends who are friends with my friends type of thing. Didn't know him but knew of him, so that sort of felt good too. About 5 months after I move in, I get a knock on the door from the owner of the property next to me to discuss insurance. Not a problem. I ask for a copy of the policy so I have a record. It gets sent through and lo and behold, it's for strata insurance. I was incredibly confused and after much back and forth, I realized that the property isn't a freehold title but a strata title. I called my lawyer who conveyed the title, etc. He was dumbfounded, but over it all did the right thing and made things as right as they could. I arranged for a meeting with the real estate agent. I brought emails and printouts of the ads they had all saying it was freehold. Emails between the real estate agent and my lawyer discussing its freehold status. Despite it being an absolute black and white, he refused to accept any fault or offer anything to make things right. I don't begrudge that, he's looking out for himself, I get that. However, I wouldn't forget it. I did enter into mediation with the real estate agent and all I asked for was, when the time came for me to sell, they do it or cover the costs. I thought this was reasonable, but they flat out refused, offered me $1,000 to go away, which I refused. I had the option to pursue them legally, but ultimately I decided against it for a few reasons, the main one being my health at the time. So I planned and plotted and I schemed and connived as to how to get back at this son of a and I settled on this. I found his personal Facebook page, which wasn't set to private, saw some photos of a boys on tour trip he went on a few weeks prior, so about 5 to 6 months after I bought the property. I also found his address through a business registration search. On the anniversary of the sale, for 6 years straight, I sent them flowers with a note. "Dear real estate agent, remembering you on this our special day. She has your eyes. Love, L." They varied ever so slightly over the years, but always had "on this our special day" and some weird inference to a love child and a desire to reconnect. I also from time to time arranged for postcards and letters to be sent from another country. The one he was on tour in always signed Love L. I learned about 3 weeks ago that this guy had recently divorced, lost his home, and is no longer working as a real estate agent. His wife had found out he cheated on her. The story I was told through said friends of friends went along the lines of he would get weird gifts and flowers every year, same day every year. She, his wife, finally put 2 and 2 together and realized what the date was and he admitted to cheating on her. Now, I didn't mean for this, but it turns out a year before I bought my house, he had gone on holiday, came back with an STD, gave it to his wife, but somehow convinced her that it wasn't him. As such, our special day turned out to be right around the time he'd have been balls deep, sans condom, in someone who wasn't his wife, only 1 year earlier. He's apparently lost his house, half his retirement savings, and also his business. I do feel a little bit guilty about all of it sometimes, but then I'm reminded that he's a scumbag and that karma, like me, is a patient, spiteful, and vengeful bitch. User Hot LavaTube said, "I'm kind of reminded of my dad's story from high school back around 1940. Apparently, he had this PE teacher that had forced them to do baton exercises each day. This involved posing with a baton. The students were pretty fed up with it and wanted it to stop. Thus, they pooled their knowledge. They knew the teacher had recently married and they knew what car he drove, a nice red convertible. Apparently, that was enough. A group of these miscreants raided the Lost and found for the women's locker room and began sneaking articles into the passenger seat of the teacher's convertible in places where the new wife might happen upon it. A stray lipstick here, a spare pair of panties crammed there, a bikini stuffed under the seat, and so forth. Apparently, it didn't take long to have an effect. The new wife forced her husband to relocate to another district where he wouldn't be near whatever hussy he was cheating on her with. Thus, the inane baton practice PE ended. Quick bonus story. The kids at Dad's school used to like to skip out through a hole in the fence between classes. Dad used to smoke cigarettes, but had to stop when they raised the price a nickel and he couldn't carry that many pop bottles. Anyhow, there was one teacher who'd patrol the perimeter to catch them. Apparently, someone had the idea to dig a trap pit and cover it with twigs and leaves. They watched the teacher perform their round. Walking, and gone. Thankfully, they didn't line the pit with punji sticks. The teacher was fine, but it did stop the perimeter patrols for a time. A lot of Dad's stories from his childhood sounded like things that'd get kids arrested these days. It was definitely a different time. User Joker83 said, "I don't know what you're saying about the real estate, but it sounds like you bought something you shouldn't have. You found the perfect property. Then your lawyers went through it. Then somehow it was wrong. Then because of your health, you won't sue. I mean, I wouldn't sue because that lawyer you have sucked, but I couldn't see a law firm not backing their name that they can't handle simple real estate contracts correctly." Under this comment, OP said the following: "Agreed, my lawyer dropped the ball and they paid the price, but were at least honest about their mess up. There's some more to the story about what the real estate agent actually knew and why they were deceptive, but I didn't go into too much as the post was long enough. It essentially stems from the type of property it is and how the strata title was established, as well as how and why the original title was established. You actually can't find the strata title the usual way. The type of title was done in my city for a short period, and it was to encourage many of the larger blocks of property to subdivide and build another home on, but the provincial government deemed it unlawful. They were grandfathered, and I actually had to go through the process of retitling it a year or two ago. The real estate agent knew all of this and flat out lied when queried on it during settlement. He also convinced my lawyer against requesting the real documents, as it would have taken literally another month by providing certified copies of the current title on them. When you request a copy of an original, the copy gets physically stamped with the date and time by the archivist. It then gets another stamp with the archivist's details. The certified copy that my lawyer received was the one from just before the property was subdivided, which we can tell from the city stamp. As the title holder, I requested all the info that came with a who, what, when, and why list of copies. However, the date stamp was for a month or so prior to sale. The agent is on the record as having accessed the title the day of the date. I believe that they had the pre-subdivision title from the owners and the one they requested while selling the property. Photoshop ensued, and the date stamp from the new title was put onto the old title to make it look like there wasn't a strata. The agent claims that the scans got corrupted or some bullshit, but I know what the prick did. Again, more to it, and message me and I'll tell you the whole story. As for my health, I had to have several surgeries, sadly, which were not fun. I was also employed full-time, as well as caring for my father, who died of cancer. I was eventually made financially whole from a settlement with my lawyer. I didn't ask for money from the agent, just for them to sell it or pay for someone else to do it when the time came. At the time, I still thought they had made a silly but honest mistake, but as more emails and data or evidence were shared, it became clear to me that this wasn't the case. This next story is a bit different. It was actually posted onto an external site and then reposted onto Reddit. The post is titled, "I ghosted my ex. She's about to be my new boss. I was hoping you would be able to help me with a conundrum I got myself into. I have been an expat since graduating and have been moving a lot. More than a decade ago, when I was still young, I was in a relationship with a woman, Sylvia, in a country where we both lived. Sylvia wanted to settle down, but I was not ready to commit so young. We clearly had different expectations from the relationship. I did not know what to do and, well, I ghosted her. Over the Christmas break while she was visiting her family, I simply moved out and left the country. I took advantage of the fact that I accepted a job in another country and did not tell her about it. I simply wanted to avoid being entangled in a breakup drama. Sylvia was rather emotional and became obsessed with the relationship, tracking me down, even causing various scenes with my parents and friends. Anyhow, fast forward to now. I now work as a math teacher in an international school. I have been in other relationships since, so Sylvia is a sort of forgotten history, sadly until now. This week I learned that our fantastic school director suddenly resigned due to a serious family situation and had to move back to her home country over the summer. The school had to replace her. We are getting a new director. I read the bio of the new boss and Googled her and was shocked to discover it is Sylvia. We have not been in touch and do not have any mutual friends anymore. I am not a big fan of social media and had no idea what she had been up to since the unpleasant situation a long time ago. I have no idea what to do and how to deal with this mess. It is clear this will be not only embarrassing, but I will also be reporting to my ex. I am not in a position to find another job at present. There are no other international schools, so finding another job in this country is not an option. Even finding a job elsewhere is not possible on such short notice. These jobs usually open for school terms, so I have to stay put for a few months. But more importantly, I am happy and settled here, so I do not want to move. To make the situation worse, the expat community here is very small and tightly knit, so teachers also socialize a lot. Do you have any suggestions for me on how to handle it and what I should do? I understand that this would not have happened if I had not ghosted her back then, but I cannot do anything about it now. I gathered from the comments that readers usually criticize people like me for bad behavior, but I am really looking for constructive comments on how to deal with the situation. Additional comment from OP when asked how long they were together. We were together for 3 years and lived together for 2 of those years. I know that ghosting is not a way to end a relationship, but I cannot do much about it now. I appreciate the trouble you are taking in getting back to me. I admit I wrote my original email in a state of panic. I was on my holidays when I found out, and a friend of mine gave me your email. I did not realize my message would be fully replicated on your blog. I am sure you get tons of requests, and I thought I would be lucky to get a reply within one of those short scenarios at most. By the time the blog was posted and I was returning home, my initial panic started to dissipate as I found out more about Sylvia's situation, just in time to discover the story going viral, both online and offline. I can say that in no way did I expect that writing to a very popular but niche professional blog would result in such an internet shitstorm. I am sorry for not engaging with your readers, but given the toxicity of many commentators, I did not see much sense in doing it. I am still very much freaked out about the whole experience, but since I promised to give you my update, here it is. Those who blame me for ruining Sylvia's life for good were wrong. She has done very well for herself. She is married with kids and her husband is originally from here. They relocated because of his business opportunity, not because she would be stalking me or would orchestrate this in some elaborate vendetta. It is a crazy coincidence, but as some readers pointed out, our professional world can be very small. I immediately reached out to Sylvia along the lines of your kind advice, and also offered to discuss the way forward in person. Here, I appreciate many useful comments from your readers on what to write. She did not get back to me. I was not sure she was still using her old email address, and with the return to school day fast approaching, I resent the email to her new work email. I also dropped a short message to HR without providing full details. The next morning, I got a call from the chair of our board of overseers asking me to meet him as soon as possible. I met with him together with Sylvia the same day. As you can imagine, this meeting was incredibly embarrassing for me, personally and professionally. Fortunately, unlike what some of your readers hoped, they did not think the past failed relationship was a sackable offense. In the end, there is not that much interaction between the director and employees on a daily basis. The chair was more worried about possible gossip and related implications for the organization. Ours is an expensive enterprise, this is a conservative place, and nobody wants any scandal. At the same time, they considered it necessary to put some measures in place to avoid possible problems in the future. I was also told in no uncertain terms that although the schedule for the year was already set, it was far more difficult to replace the director than an employee, me. I do not want to go into too many details, but I found the proposed measures rather excessive. It would make my position untenable even in the short run. Therefore, I resigned on the spot. My resignation was later accepted. In summary, as many of those self-righteous people on the internet hoped, I came out of this with no job, no severance, and no prospect for another job in this city. Obviously, I have to leave as I need to make a living. I will be shortly moving back home for several months to work as a substitute teacher with an agency. I will see what's next later. So I had my comeuppance. I am most certainly not asking for pity. I only wish there were not other individuals bearing the brunt of my immaturity in the past. My partner cannot join me due to visa issues and family situation. The following is OP's response when asked how Sylvia seemed and what were the measures the organization wanted to put in place. I do not know how it was for Sylvia. I have not seen her since. She seemed fine. She was not gleeful, very matter of fact, saying it was possible to work together and etc. The chair did most of the talking. I found out later that her husband comes from a prominent family here. Everyone knows them. Nepotism is prevalent in this culture and family status really matters. The chair knows them. I just do not understand why she had to get him involved. We could have tried to sort this out between us first with no need to go to the top immediately. The measures included things like, we are never to talk to each other without a third person present, all meetings documented, no discussion about her and the management with my colleagues, not even in water cooler chat, limit our interactions beyond the school, meaning no socializing for me. I do not understand how this could work. It would be very much out of character for me, and my colleagues and friends would get suspicious. Although not presented as such, it felt very punitive. User Cobra Kazoo said, "This is one of my all-time favorites, always a fun read." OP failing to mention that they'd been together for years, yet insinuates that she's crazy for calling around to make sure he's okay. I'm glad it ended the way it did. User Orphan Izzy said, "I usually find some way to have understanding or empathy for almost everybody in a story, even the villain, but I'm having a really hard time finding any sympathy for him because what he did was, my god, some seriously cowardly, cruel stuff. So I'm not gonna feel anything except a little bit of satisfaction knowing that karma does eventually pay a visit." User Wooster182 said, "This guy is a total jerk. He's also an idiot. He so pompously explains that they didn't fire him, but then a few sentences down explains that the measures put in place to protect the school were too much, and he resigned. They shoved you out, and he contacted HR but is pissed at her for involving the chair. Such a self-righteous, condescending, clueless douchebag." User Lost Raven Blue said, "BOP, 3-year relationship. Scared of conflict. Disappear on GF. She calls parents. Shocked Pikachu face. Years later, new job. XGF is new boss. Reach out. XGF has her boss mediate. Shocked Pikachu face." A deleted user said, "They had the chance to deal with the awkward situation years ago, and now the consequences have caught up to them. Unless they are hiding that she was abusive or dangerous in some way, they really did a very unkind thing and don't seem very sorry. Their attitude is very much, 'I'm over it, why can't we let it go?' when what they did is the sort of thing that causes years of pain and trust issues for the person involved. They lived together for 2 years. I can't imagine how that affected her. I don't know if they should have lost their job over it, but I'm unsure if the measures were that unsolvable. I don't get how not talking about her to other coworkers or not talking to her outside of school would have ruined his socializing, but maybe something was left out in the explanation." This post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "I am 51F and my husband died 3 years ago. How do I convince our children I don't ever want to ever move on?" Shortly after my late husband celebrated his 50th birthday, he succumbed to his heart defect and passed away. He was born with a missing valve, and we always knew there was a risk of an early death, but it hit me like a train regardless. He was and always will be my soulmate, and I wanted to grow old and senile together with him. We have 2 wonderful children together, 20F and 18M. The kids were hit especially hard by my husband's passing, especially our son who was very close with him. I have been there for them to the best of my ability, but it has been difficult when I spend each moment feeling like I have a hole in my being, as if I am missing the biggest and brightest part of me. Our kids are my world. They have been my beacon of hope throughout this ordeal, and I don't know where I would be without them. They have noticed how utterly lost I have been since my husband's passing, and have started to encourage me to rejoin the dating process. I understand this comes from a place of care and worry, but they continue pushing even when I say I am not interested. My husband was truly my other half. I simply can't imagine moving on and replacing him. He will live forever in my heart, and I sincerely hope to see him again when I pass on. It is one of the only dreams I have left for the future. When our children tell me it's okay to move on, I can't help but feel I would be disrespecting his memory, and the thought of being with anyone else fills me with disgust. I truly have no desire to move on. I think I'll spend the remainder of my life waiting to be reunited with my love. How do I convince our children I have no wishes to move on without being disrespectful to their concerns? User Wank Spanks Off said, have you laid it out fully to them simply and honestly that you aren't holding back from dating for any reason but simply feel no desire to? And aside from your children, do you have a network of fellow adults that you are connected to and able to rely on for support and friendship? They're pushing it might just be out of concern of you becoming isolated. Under this comment, OP said the following, thank you for your reply. Yes, I have told them that I do not want to date, but they seem to believe it is due to a fear of getting back out there. They have told me many times not to worry about this and that there are probably many eligible men my age. I'm sure there are, yet that is irrelevant since I do not want to find them. As for my network, I would like to say I do. I am still very close with my friends from college as well as certain co-workers, and we do keep in touch often. As the years went on, we spread out across the country and it is harder to connect for in-person support. They have still been there for me through everything. User Pool Q said, I'm sorry for your loss. I think it's beautiful that you and your husband had that kind and depth of relationship. I come from a different place. I have been separated for 8 years, have no need to get divorced and no desire to date again. If I did, I'd get divorced. My youngest would like me to start dating again. I have no interest. However, I have gone back to school to take up a new interest and have been focusing more on getting things done that have slipped to the wayside in the last 25 years. I'm trying to pay more attention to friendships. Maybe look at taking up some interests. You are not disrespecting your kids' concerns. You see a different way forward than they do. User Plus Implement said, as an adult child that saw my mom go through a divorce, which is far from a death, but the concept I think remains the same. I was seeing my mom be alone, watching TV, just alone. I also knew that I would be moving out in a few years, and the thought of leaving her alone like that was horrible. That's what your kids are really addressing, I suspect. It's more about seeing you have friends, hobbies, travel, have fun plans with your friends. They want to see you happy. It will give them peace and freedom to start on their own life journeys, to know that you are okay when they leave. Go ahead and mourn. 100% agree that you should not find a partner if you don't want one, but are you making efforts to live your life large and happy while you are still able to? Or are you in a deep depression that impacts your kids? It did me. I was so glad when mom finally started living again and being happy. It set me free and it made me so happy to see her like that again. User Exact Philosopher said, your kids don't want you to replace their father, but at 18 and 20, they are thinking about their futures. They need to know you will be okay as they move on and become independent. It upsets them to think you will be lonely and depressed. I would suggest you make an effort to create an active social life without dating. Seek out activities where you can meet people and connect. Try to make new friends and keep busy. If your kids can see that you can find happiness out there, they won't be so focused on you dating.